guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Trespass and Park in a Farmer's Driveway Without Permission? You'll get a truckload of manure on top of your convertible. My father had always been a polite and kind-hearted man. But he's sharp as a tack and you should watch out for him. I could never get away with anything when I was a teenager. One of my favorite stories to tell about him is the time that he got his ultimate revenge on this douchey lawyer from the city. It started with our hometown forming a public national park next to our property. I'll admit that I love the park and walk there frequently. It helped raise our property value a ton as well. Dad and I had always used it as our form of bonding and therapy, before it was an actual park, and would often go fishing at the large lake that exists a few miles north of the park. Our very long driveway runs about 10 or 12 yards in front of the park entrance. A few feet on the other side of the driveway are a ravine and then our fields. The city carved out a little gravel parking area maybe 100 yards from the entrance. For most people, this is enough, and you know, they're there to exercise, so what's wrong with walking a little further to get to the entrance? Well, one day some fancy pants sporty convertible started showing up parked in our driveway. I guess to be exact, half of it was. But still, Dad couldn't get his tractor around it one day because it would roll into the ravine. It ended up costing him almost an entire day's work, and when it comes to farming, that's a big freaking deal. Dad lingered near the vehicle for over 2 hours waiting for the man to come back. He was really polite about it. I remember being about 15 and sitting in the tractor watching and listening to the conversation. I can park wherever I want, he said with an arrogant tone. Let's call this guy, Jerk. Now, I'm going to need you to get away from my car. I'm sure it's worth more than your house. He climbed into his convertible over the door like an asshole trying to look cool and started it up, putting on his sunglasses, and peeled out so fast it sent gravel flying and hitting Dad and the tractor. I could see Dad fighting the urge to get upset, readjusting his hat calmly after being pelted by rocks. My father was not used to being blatantly disrespected by men like that. In our small town, people are generally kind and good to each other, especially the farmers. Not this guy. He's not from here, we can tell. Turns out, we were right. The car was back the following week, after discreetly inspecting the license plate, H0TSH0T. I was able to see what county the vehicle was registered in, which was a bigger city not too far outside of our town. When the car was parked in our driveway a second time in 1 week, Dad was pretty pissed. He really needed to accomplish his work today or he would end up behind for the first time ever in his farming career. Jerk seemed to take hours to return to his car that day. When he finally did get there, he seemed absolutely irritated that we were waiting for him. What are you doing by my car again? He ran up to it and started inspecting the paint job for any marks or dents. Sir, I need you to please stop parking in my driveway. I need to get past you, and when you park here I can, said my father, but Jerk cut him off. I don't care what you say, I can park here if I want to. He opens the door and gets into the car the normal way this time. Now please, would you kindly duck off and leave me alone about it before I sue you? He peeled out again, throwing rocks onto us and the tractor. Father was red in the face and shaking. Let's get back to work. He just wanted to carry on and forget about it. The summer ended and I was going back to school, so I couldn't help Dad with farm work anymore. One day when I was on the bus on the way home, I looked behind us to see Jerk in his sports car with a very pretty woman. She was beautiful with long blonde hair that whipped around as the wind from the convertible caught it. She was laughing as the douchey man must have made terrible jokes. It was obvious that they were headed towards the park, my house. When I got off the bus, he was pulling up behind me, skipping the usual parking spaces and headed down our driveway. I stood in his way and refused to move, making him stop the car. Get out of the way, you little crap, he yelled, earning him a strange look from his female passenger. I just stood there, staring at him. He threw his car in park and got out. As he walked up to me aggressively, I wasn't quite sure what he was going to do. He got close to my face, as close as he could because he was shorter than me. Even at 15, I already told your dad that I'd sue him if you guys kept this up. In case you couldn't tell, I'm a pretty successful lawyer and it wouldn't be crap for me to take your old man to court. Now move. He gets back into his car, and we stare each other down for another 30 seconds or so before I decide to head back to the house. So, he's some hotshot lawyer, huh? I started looking into this. I hop on the internet. Yeah, I'm not that old. The internet and Facebook was a pretty established thing when I was 15. And start looking at lawyers in the city where he's from. It took a while and I had to sacrifice some important homework time, but I managed to pull it off. His name was Martin, hotshot, Thompson, and I suppose he was a little bit of a big deal as far as lawyers are concerned in a somewhat big city. Either way, he's still an asshole. Something else I discovered was that the pretty blonde woman he was with today was not his wife. Haha, I think this is some important info to keep in my back pocket. Another day or two passes and Martin, hotshot, Thompson shows up again in our driveway. He's alone this time though. Right before Jerk showed up, we had a big truck show up to pick up a bunch of cow crap. Yeah, we also have cows on top of crops. A few times a year Dad made a pretty good profit off of cow shish 1T since people like to use it for fertilizer. The problem that comes from Jerk showing up after the truck came is that this truck full of crap can't get around his pretty little sports car now. The driver walked back to the house to tell us that he couldn't get past a vehicle parked on the side of the driveway. Dad has known this guy for a few years now and I'd say they're kind of friends. He tells his buddy about the BS that Hotshot has put him through, and he chuckles and asks Dad if he's interested in getting some payback. Dad and the driver head back down the gravel driveway and put their revenge plan in motion. The truck was pretty full of poop, maybe a little too much, so we shook quite a bit of the overflow on top of the convertible. Even with how little the amount appeared coming out of the truck, once it was in the car, it seemed to fill it up in a hurry. We all laughed till our sides hurt and waited for the man to return to his vehicle. The amount of drama that followed was truly hilarious. Hotshot's face was well worth all of it too. His eyes nearly bugged out of his head when he saw all the cowshish 1T in his car. The fact that we were all sitting there laughing was even better. He fumed and screamed a bunch of hardly understandable curse words. When he opened the car door, tons of manure fell out onto his nice running shoes. Dad was nearly crying with laughter, casually pulled an old gardening trowel out of his back pocket and handed it to him. Here, you can borrow a shovel. The three of us howled with laughter again and Jerk smacked the trowel onto the ground. He took a moment to hand scoop mounds of it out of the driver's seat so he could peel out like usual. We didn't hear from Jerk until about a week later when he showed up again. This time Dad wasn't home, and the Ahole was waiting in the driveway when I got off the bus. He had a yellow folder of papers. He handed me the folder, saying that these were for my father. That he was suing us for dumping all the crap onto his car. I see that you got it cleaned up just fine, I said, clearly making an observation. What do you care? Make sure your dad gets though. I cut him off rudely like he did my dad. I'm not giving him anything. You wanna know why? I saw you with that pretty blonde lady, but I figured out that that's not your wife. He was clearly surprised. How do you know? He started saying, his eyes big with shock. I'm a kid with internet access. It's not that hard to figure out when you have a Facebook, stupid. I handed him his folder of papers back and turned on my heel and walked up the driveway towards my house. Proud as hell of myself to be honest. Hotshot got in his sports car and drove away that day, never coming back. The next story is titled, Want Some Free Gas? I Gotcha Bro. So, several years ago, my friend, we'll call him Boris, and I would always help each other do the spring cleanup for our properties. This included taking out damaged trees, preparing garden plots, and taking care of our weed-infested yards. I was going to be first on the cleanup detail, so I prepared tools and implements the Friday before the big cleanup was to happen. Sharpening tools and chainsaw chains, lawnmower blade, and just getting everything in order. Among those tasks was mixing head with 2-cycle oil. Finished up kind of late and generally put things away for the next day. The next morning Boris shows up with coffee and biscuits around 8 a.m. As we were sitting on his tailgate enjoying breakfast, my neighbors ride by in their beat-to-hell Chevy Cavalier smoking like a freight train. We will call them Rocky and Bullwinkle. Boris and I made the usual jokes about the amount of smoke pouring from the exhaust. Damn, bet they go to the gas station and fill up with oil and check the gas. We soon finished breakfast and thought no more about it. As we begin to get the tools laid out and has out a plan of attack, I cannot find my gas cans. No mixed gas, regular gas, or a gas can in general. That's when it dawned on us why the car Rocky and Bullwinkle were driving was smoking so bad. I'm pissed to say the least. Well, all Boris and I could do was go shopping for gas cans, gas, and more 2-cycle oil. After we returned, we saw Rocky and Bullwinkle pass by several times, but all in all, we got a lot done. The next weekend we dedicated to clean up at Boris's. A weekend or two go by and we have a family dinner at my wife's, Rocky and Bullwinkle's grandparents'. Toward the latter part of the evening, we were having a few drinks. Most people had left and myself and wife's grandfather were shooting the breeze when I had to take a leak. As I was doing so, I saw a gas can with very distinct paint on it. I inquired from the old man about how it came into his possession, and he stated Rocky and Bullwinkle left it there. I simply explained it was mine as was another and loaded them in my truck. It ate at me every time that POS car with my post neighbors went by. So, I hatched a plan from a rotten egg. I went and bought a few gallons of gas, a few gallons of diesel fuel, and some other various oils. I made a concoction of these different chemicals and filled my new 6-gallon gas can I had to purchase. With some clean gas, I filled the lawnmower and cut some grass that evening, making sure Rocky and Bullwinkle saw me. Then I put everything away but forgot and left that rotten egg gas can out. I got up and went to work the next morning and didn't even think to check on the can. But when I got home, I checked, and it was gone. My wife informed me that my plan must have worked as she watched Rocky and Bullwinkle go in and out with the car, not only smoking but spitting and sputtering as well. The last time they rode out, they didn't ride back in. They gave me about an hour of peace before they came over and wanted to know if I could look at the car and see what was wrong. If it could not be fixed on the side of the road, maybe tow it home. My response? I've had a long day and have a migraine. Maybe tomorrow. I saw the panic set in when I told them that. That's when they told me they had no insurance and it was on a main road. Tough luck. So, the highway patrol did run across it and had it towed. It was going to cost them around $500 to get it out of impound, plus they had to have current registration and insurance. Car wasn't worth it. Well, they're those type of people that good luck just falls on them, and the pastor for a local church gave them an old for Taurus. Took me a few cans of rotten egg gas, but I got the motor to lock up after about a month. This time it quit in their grandparents' yard. So, they scrapped it, and as luck would have it, they got their income tax returns. They bought a nice looking Ford F-150, but it began having problems too. Smoked really bad. They did take it to a mechanic that eventually found the problem. He got the truck running right again for about $1,500, and I have never had any more gas come up missing. The last story is titled, Maintenance Guy at Senior Living Center Gets Revenge on Satellite TV Companies. Over 200 plus residents emerge victorious. I'm the maintenance director at an independent senior living center. It's pretty much an apartment complex in which you have to be a senior citizen to reside. We provide 3 meals a day, housekeeping, activities, a bus for transportation, and several other amenities to increase the quality of life, because more times than not, they will spend the final years of their life here. Our facility is family-owned and orientated. Family members of current employees are encouraged to apply for positions. We have one rule in our employee handbook: ensure resident safety, happiness, and prolongment of life. I take my job very seriously and take pride in it. I try to go above and beyond to make them all happy. Each resident during the daytime either listens to the radio, play crossword puzzles, or most of the time watch their favorite TV shows. We do not provide television service. Each resident has to provide it themselves, if they choose. Over the last year there has been a trend of televisions not working in countless units, and when this happens, they are very upset. When I get a work order for a TV, I go and check it out. Most of the time there is nothing I can do. If the cable isn't cut, everything is plugged in, and there is no obstruction to the satellite signal, it's going to be a software issue. When this happens, I install an air antenna until their regular service is fixed. The company and a tech comes out, fixes it, and usually within a couple hours it stops working again. This is a never-ending cycle of upset residents. Over the course of an entire year, I spoke with several supervisors and tried to schedule for someone to come out and go through the entire property with me to address each issue. They weren't having that. They wanted me to go to each individual unit and have that particular resident call them. This is almost impossible. A lot of them have trouble hearing and discussing complex matters over the telephone, let alone know the 4-digit code and the answer to the secret question. One resident was out of service for over 60 days, and I demanded that they refund or discount this particular resident properly. They ended up only giving her $21 off, which isn't even half of a single month's payment. When I spoke with this particular representative, I told them that wasn't enough, and I would be throwing all of their dishes in the dumpster. This is just the tip of the iceberg. These companies have caused significant property damage to the facility. They've ran the coax in the gutters and down the downspouts. Ran cables draped over the sidewalk, which is a tripping hazard. Installed dishes in the center of courtyards and wherever is convenient for them. All over the property, cables strung out on top of the grass for hundreds of feet. They don't bother to bury any cables. I have discussed this numerous times with the owner of the facility of the last year. The last time I spoke with him about it, he gave me the okay to handle the situation and do whatever needed to be done to fix the issue. My options were limited, and the only feasible option I could concoct was using a landline company that didn't need a satellite dish. Well, I have officially finished running new coax to every single unit, and a landline company has came in and installed boxes and services in each resident's apartment. Residents who have previously had to pay a monthly fee for their television service now get their service free of charge. Those that never had service now do. We have saved over 50 residents money every month, and all in total over 200 plus now have television service that is included in their rent without any increase whatsoever. This was revenge for the representative talking to Miss T in such a negative and rude tone. I couldn't be happier for my residents. Our senior citizens are some of the most precious things in life. They hold all of our wisdom. Good day and thank you for listening.